All right, gonna get this going soon here. Delvin, if you can hear me, I am not doing a 72-minute live stream. So it's just not happening, not with my cold and my voice. Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi on this Sunday. I'm still not doing well with this head cold I've got, although I am actually feeling a little bit better today. Kind of hits you over the head and makes you very, very tired. I actually slept over 12 hours overnight, which I think helped me, at least with the way I feel today. The pressure's a bit off my head, so that's a good thing. So let me get this underway. Yes, I'm doing zinc lozenges. Yes, I've got vitamin C. I'm boiling some water right now so I can add to my pomegranate green tea, English breakfast tea, which is black tea mixed all together. So I appreciate the suggestions. Believe me, I'm doing everything I can. At least I have no fever through all of this, which is good. So let's get underway with what we're going to be going through the next couple of weeks, because the weather pattern going forward, in my mind, continues to solidify in terms of somewhat of a repeat performance of what we went through back from mid-December to mid-January. I don't know whether it's going to be as intense, perhaps, or as extreme, but we do have those teleconnection indices all pointing in this direction. You've got the EPO index, which is forecast to go sharply negative very, very shortly in the next couple of days and continue to stay sharply negative pretty much through at least February 12th. You have the Pacific North America index in a negative mode, although it's approaching come back shortly. Okay, good. So just let me know that you guys are came back on. There's all kinds of weird things going on here with wireless signals and so on. But okay, bottom line is we are going to see this pattern get into cold and winter mode again. And I suspect that there will be some snow events along the way. And we'll first off, before we even get to that, I just want to show you what's happening today at the moment here in the eastern part of the United States, as we do have some rain that is still working through the area, and you can see it on the radar. Rain that runs from eastern Virginia through southeastern Pennsylvania, across into almost all of New Jersey except the north, southern Connecticut, Long Island from here south. So this is all rain as a cold front is moving on through, and there's going to be a wave developing on that front that will enhance precip in offshore at least. I don't know how much of this is going to back in, and we also have the possibility, the probability that some colder air that's coming in, so the possibility that we might wind up with a little snow out of this. But let's bring up the GFS. You can see how much trouble I'm having here today, folks. I'm still not where I should be with all of this. I don't get colds very often, but this one really kind of knocked me out to a large degree. Okay, so let's bring up the surface map. Got the GFS. We'll put the precip on. Not that one. Put the rain and frozen. And we'll set it up to the first round. Just hang on, I'm getting my tea here. There we go. Sorry about that. Just wanted to get some of my tea out of the boiling water. Okay, so here's our situation for today. And you can see there's low pressure in the northeastern Gulf. You know, what's happening is we've got several pieces here of what could have transformed into a more important storm, but the pieces just did not seem to come together. You've got this wave that's moving offshore and running to the northeast. Colder air coming back in as high pressure drops down into Minnesota. And then there's the upper air trough that is still pretty far to the west. It needed to be further east in order to catch that short wave that's producing the low offshore, and it just misses it. So the ocean storm goes out as a separate entity, and you wind up with some snows that develop with the upper trough that as it swings eastward, and then that gradually just disappears. So I'm not really looking for too much to happen here. The areas that might get skimmed with a little bit of snow, possibly southeastern New England to Long Island, and maybe briefly, coastal New Jersey before it moves out. And then you've got that upper trough that swings on through, again, not producing very much. So this shot of cold air will play itself through for the first part of this week. And then you've got this Arctic front that is approaching for the second half of the week as we get into Groundhog Day. And one of the things that's going to occur, and you can see on today's run, it doesn't really occur much at all. Models continue to back off on these weather systems that in the long range look fairly robust. And here we are now getting into the short range. You've got this next front coming through for the end of this week, which was shown to be a powerhouse just a few days ago, now has little or nothing with it. It goes out way underneath. What we're witnessing, I believe, is the overwhelming of cold, dry air that was signature with the first part of the winter. And now we're going to try this again as we move into the second part. Now, it does, as we move into next weekend and the beginning of the following week, once again trying to show some kind of wave on an Arctic boundary with some rain and snow with it. I don't know that I necessarily believe that this is going to be as robust as the models show. Perhaps it'll wind up being flatter and not as robust overall. That has been the trend. And going even further into the long range, it just seems as if it's going to be cold shot after cold shot coming down with not much room for storm development here. So just bear that in mind. I would say this, however, the fact that the models are not showing very much in terms of storm activity for the next 16 days is probably more of a bullish signal that something will happen. It's just that the actual specifics are just not there yet in terms of what's being shown. So I would not at all, it's probably better when the model doesn't show you something than when it does, is basically what I'm getting at if you are a snow lover. Because you know that if it's got a snowstorm in the long range here, it's not going to happen. Here's your upper air, just really quick. And there's your trough in the east. The signature vortex that forms in Canada and Hudson's Bay that'll be dropping down and rotating around with cold air mass after cold air mass. And look at that, that polar connection here that sets up, this is toward Monday, February 5th. You've got a strong flow from the Arctic into Western Canada, into the eastern part of the United States. This is really just about a carbon copy of what we went through back in mid-December to mid-January. And I'm thinking that at some point, one of these systems dropping down is going to create a snow event. Now, which one is it going to be? I don't know. But again, just because the models have no specific event is probably a bullish sign that something will happen along the way. It's just the nature of what we're dealing with here and what we often see when we look at the long range and even in the short range. It's problematic. Let me come back to the short range, by the way. I want to take a look at the RGEM model, and let's get a close-up view here of the east. The RGEM yesterday was still trying to be pretty bullish, and I do like the RGEM model a lot. I think it does work well, but it was trying to signal that perhaps we were going to see something out of this first system. But now, that surface wave is just far enough east, and you can see the separate area with the snow in the upper trough to the west remaining rather separate and distinct. This only takes us to Tuesday morning, and then this is all going to swing out to the northeast. So, the RGEM would certainly confirm that there really isn't going to be too much happening with all this. When we look at the snow amounts, you're going to have that area, that separate area with the upper trough to the west. You're going to have maybe a small area with the surface low to the east, and that gap right in the middle where not much happens. We can show you the GFS for the same time frame, and it's pretty much a similar story here. Most of the coastal system, mainly for southeastern New England and eastern Long Island, and then along and west of the mountains in Pennsylvania, getting a couple of inches of snow with that. We can show you the Canadian, probably giving a similar idea than the RGEM. Actually, maybe a little bit more widespread than the RGEM. Perhaps the Canadian model does a bit more with the coastal low. We'll pop it up there. And in fact, it does. It does have a bit more with the coastal low as it goes out on the northern fringe. Colder air is going to be coming in during the day on Monday. Readings aloft are going to be somewhat marginal and borderline, but either way, I mean, if there's a surprise here, you wind up, instead of nothing, you wind up with a coating to an inch or two. I mean, that would be the extent of it. I'm not seeing any big deal here with regards to snow. So you can see how much fun I'm having here with this cold of mine. It is having an impact on my voice and everything else. But believe it or not, I actually do feel better than what I did yesterday. So let me just join you guys on the board. Let me see. I completely skipped the fact that the model consensus is supporting a storm. You only showed one model without one. I assume you're talking about the second system. One of the things that I will just, point out with respect to the second system is the fact that the European, which has been very robust with this, continues, at least through last night, coming in less developed. The fact that the GFS, which has been for a while, was so robust that it was actually taking a surface wave up the Appalachians and going to the west, now starting to show that maybe nothing at all was going to happen, is probably not a good sign with regards to those of you looking for a snow event at the end of this coming week. You just have to, I don't know, I'm just getting less and less bullish on whatever's going on late this week. Your fellow skiers, Cullen, trashing this winter. They're short-sighted and cynical. The winter's been good, in your opinion. Well, certainly for upstate New York, for not even that far upstate New York, but for much of upstate New York and northern and New England, this has been fine. The bases have been terrific. Lots of open trails. It's been mostly snow from mid-December on, so I'm not quite getting what they're upset about. Maybe the southern areas, the areas in New Jersey and northern New Jersey for skiing has not been ideal because your snowfall hasn't been too bad. But your snowfall hasn't been as robust as the other areas. I've gotten more snow on the coast than you have in parts of northwest New Jersey. I'm not sure what exactly they're complaining about. Location. It's going to be the difference between, what's going on, with respect to skiing. I guess my view is that this has been pretty good. All right, you know what? Why don't we just, by the way, I'll bring up the Canadian model. We'll go in the long range. I haven't seen it, so I'll watch it with you together. We'll see it together for the first time. And, considering how much, I got to tell you, this takes a toll on me to look at this stuff on a daily basis. All right, so the Canadian is actually, still holding on to this idea of a front with a wave developing on it and some snow, and I get that. But remember that the Canadian also has been trying to take the wave up northeastward first before bringing the cold air back in, and this is now kind of backed. It seems like the GFS is leading the parade here, with each other models catching up with respect to this. The European last night, just to give you an idea, the European from 2 days ago went from showing 9 to 12 inches snowfalls to 6 to 9 inch snowfalls, and now last night it's down to 3 to 6. What's today going to show? 1 to 3 for the end of the week. I'm just not, the big issue. The big issues when we look at the upper air and how the models have changed in terms of how they're dealing with the next trough. Here's the upper air structure for the next weather system, and there's a trough there that comes through, but it's not it's not the sharpest trough in the world that you've ever seen. And in fact, the GFS, which was showing probably the sharpest and most negatively tilted of all the models, now has gotten flatter, flatter, flatter. So you have to wonder whether this trend is going to continue further as we move through subsequent model runs. I'm not saying that I'm, completely convinced that we're not going to have an event. I think the risk is definitely going to be there as we watch the models evolve over the next coming days. But, you're going to put a big snowstorm on the table on the basis of what these models are showing right now? I certainly wouldn't. Let me just bring myself back up to the top here. I don't know if there's a Russian model. Okay, I really don't. I'm sure someone out there knows if there is or if there isn't. Tyree, I hope, for the snow lovers standpoint, if the European holds its own, that at least they'll buy you a little more time. I'm just, I don't like to see, when I see models trending in a certain way, and except for the big blizzard back at the beginning of January, much of the time we've been seeing models kind of overplaying things in the long range and bringing them back weaker and weaker as we come closer, as opposed to the other way around. Not on every single event, but it did, at least with the major event, it got, the trend was kind of opposite of what we've seen lately. But models have been kind of being very robust with these things in the long range, and then they just suddenly become less so. And I wonder, I'll pose this question up there with respect to the long term. If what we're seeing right now, if we are going back to a repeat of the pattern that we had in the first half of the winter, and I have said that I wonder if there's going to be something different about it. Well, maybe the part that it's going to be different about is going to be the fact that it may wind up being drier than that pattern was, and that pattern was very dry. The rainfall amounts that were generated in the last 2 months, in December and January, for much of the eastern part of the United States, below average. So even though the snowfalls have been above average, so we'll see. It certainly looks to me like we're going to have plenty of cold air around. Whether we have storms that go with it is a whole nother story. Yes, Patricia Patriolac, I have a cold. Exactly. And I just want it to be over with, because I don't do, like most guys do. Guys do not do colds well. Okay, we really don't. We just don't handle this stuff that goes on up here at the top of our heads. Maybe it's because our brains are like boxes, and each box. I always like that analogy. That was I forgot his name, but it's on YouTube somewhere, where men of, I guess it's the men from Mars, women from Venus concept. And, men's brains are like these little boxes, and we can only keep one thing in each box. And we just don't do colds well at all. Was all the boxes seem to be stuffed at the moment. The icon model, I believe, if I remember correctly from overnight, was still pretty bullish. But you know, I've been watching that model over the last couple of weeks, and I'm not overly impressed by it so far. Just we'll get more. I'll get into that more another time. Paul Cosin can't forecast snow amounts beyond 60 hours with much skill. We'd be all better served using that rule. I know you're right, Tony M, and I agree with you. Look, it's one thing to speculate; it's another thing to forecast. So let me be clear that what I'm doing, what I've done here, and basically describing what the model is forecasting. I am not forecasting anything right now with respect to any events this coming week, except for whatever falls the miter situation for tomorrow into Tuesday. I do actually, Tony M, I do have access to Deep Thunder when I'm at my place of work. I don't have access to it here at home, but I may be able to actually see it later today. So I'll give it a look and see what it's doing. Deep Thunder's actually performed pretty well overall this winter. Not perfect, but it has had some good moments. So we'll give it a look, and we'll see. We'll see where it goes. You know what? For the few events that I've used it for, Tony, it does. Deep Thunder's actually done okay. And yes, Cullen, the icon or the German model continues to flank with the north on the northwest side. Yes, Phil Buzz, waiting for you. We're heading into town today, so get here as soon as you can. And thanks, Tony M, for bringing up Deep Thunder. Live stream schedule. Delvin wants the live stream schedule. Okay, my live stream schedule is going to depend entirely on how I feel over the next couple of days. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So if you don't see a live stream tomorrow, it probably means that I'm out sick. But otherwise we'll go back to the Monday through Friday schedules. Normally at 6 o'clock. If I can get Joe Rayo on there, it'll be 7 o'clock Eastern time. John Schultz, next weekend amount to much because of the temperature range. I assume that what you're saying is that, if we overwhelm with cold air, that, yes, we'll probably not see very much. So that is certainly what the models are hinting. Howard Vanderhoff, thank you. My birthday, yes. I did. That burger was really good. It was on a pretzel roll. We went to a wonderful German restaurant in Lindenhurst, the Village Lantern, I think it was called, if I remember correctly. And it was just the food was very, very good. I was very impressed, and also the restaurant itself is just beautiful. It makes you feel like you're back somewhere in the old country. In the mountains of Germany. It was just really it was really quite nice, and I highly recommend it. And my birthday was great. Thank you for asking. Cullen, I'm trying to feel better. Same here, Tony M. Yeah, we'll deal with the big one whenever it comes. Boston's very close to average. I hate back-end loaded winters. Front-loaded is better. Well, yeah, I guess. By the time we get to the second half of the winter, I'm at the point where I kind of want it to end and bring on the warmer weather, particularly because the cold this year has been more unrelenting than the past couple of winters. So I agree. I kind of would rather it be front-end loaded and then start thinking about the warmer weather coming for the spring so I can go fishing. But it is what it is, Delvin. However it turns out, it turns out. All right, folks, going to call it a day. Have a great rest of your Sunday. No football this Sunday because the Super Bowl is next Sunday. I am going to try and get myself better over the next couple of days. So, again, if you don't see a live stream tomorrow, it's because I'm probably just not feeling up to it. But otherwise, this week, the schedule is usually 6 o'clock Eastern time. If it winds up being a little later, I will post it on the YouTube channel, so you can check that out. Website posts are up on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. And, of course, you can also check out some more on my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Cioffi. All right, folks, have a great rest of your day. We will see you tomorrow.